Good evening, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Building and Finance Subcommittee of the School Committee. Today is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. The time is 5:01 p.m. We are meeting here in person at the Boston History Library at 32 Leslie Johnson Road in Gloucester. These meetings are recorded. Effective August 16th, 2023, the public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link listed on the agenda. The meeting notice will reflect if the meeting is a Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allows, the subcommittee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note that the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated as technological problems impact the remote connection. So we'll start with introductions, and I'm going to start on this side of the table.
Hi, Tony Marshall, Finance Director. Gary Frisch, CFO. Ben Willis, Superintendent. Dr. Michael Jarvis, Director of Special Education.
Melissa Prince, School Committee.
Kathy Lancy, School Committee.
Bill Melvin, School Committee.
Stephanie DeLisi, Recording Secretary.
Our first order of business is the Chief Financial Officer report. Coming over.
Thank you. Let's look at this handout that is in front of you. It's the budget calendar for FY 2026. And we are starting later this year because we were a month ahead of the city last year. We are aligning our budget to the city's budget cycle. We have scheduled meetings in January with our principals and our budget and our department heads. In February, the principals and the department heads will present their budgets to the B&F committee. This year, we're doing something a little different with our presentations. The principal's presentation will discuss how their building staff is budgeted to meet the needs of all learners and how we are building our programs to be inclusive of all learners. March 12th, the superintendent will outline his budget for the FY 26. On April 16th, the B&F committee will get into the weeds with reviewing the budget book. May 14th, public hearing on the budget.
Recording in progress.
As required by Mass General Law. May 28th, the school committee votes to give the budget to the city B&F. That's their budget and finance subcommittee. In June, superintendent will present to the city council. And on June 24th, the final budget will be approved. So let me stop there and entertain any questions that you may have regarding the calendar.
Questions?
I think so. Okay.
I have a comment that
Sure.
I think you're right, that I think last year we were a little too far ahead of the city. And
Yeah.
there was some time where we had a gap in
Right.
terms of moving on the budget.
Right.
So I think talking about our needs a little bit later, where people might be a little more attentive to those topics in public, would be helpful.
Okay. That's what we thought, and good, glad we're on the same page there. The next item is the budget update.
So should we make a recommendation for the school committee to vote this budget?
Can't remember if we booked the budget or not.
I mean, the calendar.
Look at the calendar. Well,
I can't remember.
I don't think we've ever voted it.
We haven't, okay, different committee. That's okay. Likely to change anyway, so we're good.
Yeah, this gives us.
Yeah, that's actually a good
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
not to vote it.
Yep.
Flexibility.
Yep.
In case,
Hopefully this one will change.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Okay, thank you for that.
Meeting we look every.
So let's look at the any budget updates for this current budget FY 25. And we do have some We do have some, items I'd like to highlight for you. First of all, after the budget was approved, the mayor promised to give the school district $60,000 from additional state aid that came in after the budget was approved. And instead of going through a supplemental budget, we can just eliminate our payment to this police department for $60,000, which is what we pay each and every year for the SRO services.
And that's been agreed upon?
I mentioned that to Connor, and I didn't get a affirmation, but that's what I'm gonna pursue. Okay. So the next thing,
We got kind of affirmation, he was allocating more dollars for a particular.
yes, right.
Not for particular expense, we have that affirmation.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
We have
the
dollars.
60,000 is affirmed. It's just, we haven't finalized the exact process.
I thought we would pay that at the beginning of the year. How do we usually pay the SRO?
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year? Okay.
Instead of, okay, the transportation coordinator was budgeted at 0.5. However, we did not fill that position. And so that's why we're gonna be under budget in that category, $35,000
We're no longer posting for that position. It's been taken off the table.
taken off the table. There are two paras at GHS. One for the library and one for the, other than special ed, one for the L program. This year, the grant, a grant is gonna pay for the L para. And then the library para was cut, so that doesn't need to be refilled. So that's why there are two savings, which add up to $53,000.
All right, so we skipped over unemployment expenses. Just,
Yeah, let's look at unemployment that's further down. Oh, no, that's the next one.
it was above the Paris.
Yeah, there was we did lay off or reduce positions last year. We anticipated that we were gonna have many more unemployment claims. However, those did not materialize. And so the 140,000 that I had included in the budget above and beyond our normal is really under budget now because it didn't happen.
That means all these people found jobs. Pretty much.
Yeah, all I know is they didn't claim. So I would infer what you said.
We didn't call them back. We didn't call any. Okay.
So just because I'm trying to get myself up to speed, this $140,000, that doesn't go back to somebody, it's just money that we had budgeted.
Right.
And
Right,
it's not being used.
it's not being used.
For these purposes at this time,
Right.
and don't expect it to, but there's a second page of this.
We'll find some uses for
I would think we would.
Yeah.
it. All right. West Parish teachers. There were 3 teachers on leave, at least on leave. And that necessitated us to hire 2 additional teachers, which is causing us to be over our budget of $150,000. Now at O'Malley. Yeah, do you have a question on that?
I'm just trying to think of our sick bank requests and if that has anything to do with leave. I don't know of any. So I was just trying to,
What, one's up, oh, no, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
I'm not sure which leads on the parental leaves.
2 were, at least 2 were parental leaves. One is a family medical leave.
okay,
So That's where they had,
So this is on the PMLA leave?
well, one is on the family medical leave.
Okay,
That's where they had, we were paying, they probably had sick leave.
Okay.
So they were getting paid,
Yeah.
but we need someone to
cover,
cover.
got it.
More of that going on. In the future.
So Mally teachers, we did provide a lower overall salary cost because some of the we had some teachers retiring. And they were replaced with other teachers with less experience. So there was some savings, or not savings, but lower costs. Athletic expenses. And this is supplies, registration, officials. And we're gonna pay for those costs through the athletic revolving fund. And that will, we won't be spending that out of the general fund, and so our costs would be lower because of that.
Isn't that how it's always happened?
Um,
I thought the athletic.
well,
fund paid those.
yes, we have in the past used both the general fund and the revolving fund. This year, it looks like there's enough money in the revolving fund, so we don't have to use,
Supplement it.
supplement it. Plum Cove specialist, very similar to the West Parish. Not the West Parish, the O'Malley, where there was some savings from a retiree. Okay, and the total is $417,000. And now we're gonna look at how we're using the money. Early on, we were talking with Mike Jarvis. And he had some ideas, and Ben,
And Dr. Immel.
and Dr. and West Parish principal. And an idea was to create a new program, special ed program to not have to spend dollars sending students out of district.
Let me catch up on this.
Yeah.
This is based on the student needs, one student who was already there, and then also new student. Good.
Yeah, so there was a need, so coming
Hi,
in, hi there, so coming in, so.
Conversation.
There was, so I anticipated doing a full audit, like soft audit, see where are the gaps, what do we do well, what don't we do well? And it was very quick for me to learn that the district has a major gap in social emotional support for kids with NCDs. And so with this funds, we built this program, one teacher, one paraprofessional, so that kids have the opportunity to stay in district in their home community, hometown, and get a robust delivery of instruction, the support with non-disabled kids. So there's a marked difference between how that can be offered as compared to an out-of-district placement could offer.
And that was a, I think, late July, early August decision. I also was involved in, I'd say it's a program we're building based on need, really focused on elementary, it's elementary need. And I think it's quite actually talking to us, other parent education direction, or superintendents, social emotional behavioral support in elementary, especially early elementary, is something that many districts experience. I mean, all across the North Shore. But it's sort of it was based on the students who were there at the school and needing the services.
So this is happening at West Parish.
Yes.
So
Yes,
just one
as a
school?
as a district program, so it could serve other schools as well,
Did any students get transferred?
not yet, not at this point. We want to keep it a low student to teacher ratio to start the school year, that could happen
Sorry.
moving forward, potentially.
Can you tell me how many kids this impacts? Like.
How many kids are receiving services in the program?
With you adding this type of program, how many students will be impacted by it?
So
If you know.
anticipated, so we're looking at for a cohort of kids, So that can run six or seven kids.
Okay.
But this is 2 right now.
3.
Oh, sorry, 3. You're right.
You have 3, but it can go up to 6 or 7. And these are kids that would normally go, or could potentially go out of district.
Yeah, so you're looking at probably beyond, because we're even more therapeutic than a collaborative would be.
Yeah.
You're looking at more therapeutic schools, which means it's more of a cost.
I just want to say like that, this is, we're developing this slowly.
Right.
So that's sort of like in the future, we got to build.
And this is additional staff, or this is staff that you need to hire?
Yeah,
to
it
have
was
this staff?
additional
Okay.
staff.
Yeah,
Okay.
based off the funds that were.
You're already hired?
Yes.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
started at the very beginning of the year. The reason we made this decision in, I think, July, late July, early August, was anticipating the beginning of the year. Knowing students' needs at West Parish, all of them, how are we supporting them with staffing and whatnot? And, there are changes that can happen and do happen at the end of the year, or the beginning of the summer, based on placement, that can affect changes in a school and its needs. That's what happened here. And so needed to really think through what's the best way to approach supporting students and what the best, sort of organization of staffing at West Parish was. And basically, and this is so with a clear need to make sure that there's some high enrollment in some existing programs, and then also based on the differing needs, we didn't want to put too wide a range of both ages and or disability profiles in a class or 2. So it warranted developing a new class with the staff.
And it's important to go slow when it's a new program with a new teacher, right? So to make it clinically robust, it's important to go slow in that way. Yeah.
Mike, so it's got three students in it now, and then at some point expand to 6 to 7 students. Assuming we're gonna have to double the staff for that.
So wouldn't be doubling the staff necessarily. So I think that's gonna be needs based.
Okay.
Right? So there can be a range of needs with kids. Some kids might require more support than others. So that's gonna have a very clinical orientation to that to make decisions on that.
Got it. And I probably missed something, but the 3 students that are in it now, were they out of district or were they at West Parish and we've just,
At West Parish.
they were, okay.
Just be conscious of sharing too many details that are student based.
Yeah.
In terms of what they've, what they've done or that sort of thing, just want to confidentiality and privacy.
Yeah.
So.
Mike, can I ask, are you done now?
Yes.
So how does this program work? Is this like an all-day program, or is this half in the program and then return to class and then have support in class, or how does this work?
So in a way,
Because of the age difference, I'm trying to.
all of that. So there would be, so there's not any, so it's in between the 48 as required. So it's got the capacity for a full sub-separate, so all core subjects.
Yeah.
So it has that. And it has the capacity for social pragmatics end of it, that's the therapeutic part of it, and the social emotional supports just the same. And then the idea is that it would be using the infrastructure as we're building this out, inclusion infrastructure, we'd be flexing kids out.
Okay,
So they can be with kids with
with their grade level.
and non-disabled kids, their peers.
So there's correct me if I'm wrong, there's a component of being inclusive,
That's right,
Right.
that's right.
which is what we
Which is
wanna,
important,
Which is a
right?
clinical
Yeah.
lens that the clinical team would look at and help inform that decision.
And does part of this team go into the classroom when the child is in inclusion?
Yes. Currently constituted, yes, but really I want to build out, the bigger story is building out the infrastructure that should be there anyway.
Anyway,
Needs to take on some of those components as well, because otherwise we'll be spread thin. If you get 6 to 7 kids in there and like they need support, so the infrastructure has to be there to support that.
so this is the type of program where if a student was at, say, Plum Cove, they needed these services, they would transfer to West Parish.
That's right.
And
That's a district.
will you provide transportation for that, or how would that
Yeah.
work? Okay,
And so. So this was an immediate need. And we developed a solution that's about building a program, maybe calling a program, at this point, maybe a little premature. You know, it's also just shorthand as well, right, you know, or, but it's running similarly to some of our other programs at West Parish, but it's different, profile of the student. What I mean by that, it's different, combination of disabilities the students have, student needs and support. So, some other programs at West Parish work similarly, which is, you know, I think staffing, but also, you know, combination of subject separate and also including in the regular classes as well. So, but it's more about, the difference really is it's newer, you know, it's a new classroom essentially, but also a combination of needs we didn't really have a dynamic program for prior to.
And how does one get referred to this program? Is it through like the IEP process or teacher recommendation or
So,
the
so,
regular
so I-
special education request?
so these are for kids who are already eligible for special education
Yeah.
services. So if we have kids that are not making effective progress and we've maxed out services, maxed out methodology, maxed it all out, then through the process would be through my coordinator meetings or program leader meetings, which are weekly. Talk about each particular student. We talk about the profile, talk about the merits of the profile, talk about the merits of what was done or what wasn't able to be done. And then there'd be a referral for the program. And then that would go through T process. Parents would be involved all the way.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air. Okay. So I'd like to also talk about that. We've added 3 paras recently. 2 of them are at West Parish. 1 at East will be at East Veterans. So I'm going to ask Mike to elaborate further on that.
Yeah, so this is almost, this is a reclaiming of services, and this is about coverage of services. So it's really imperative that students' IEPs are implemented by service providers and paraprofessionals are on some of these students' IEPs. And so this makes it so that our services are being provided for our kids. So they are necessary in that way. We're also seeing, not just for district programs, we're seeing throughout the district, a number of social emotional issues crop up with intensive needs, and paraprofessionals are process with kids, identify feelings, and building that repertoire of knowing what to do with safe feelings. That all comes out of PD.
There's also health-related issues which have created for additional need for some students who've been with us for a while, you know, but again, don't want to go too deep into that, but it's also health-related as well.
And this is all elementary. So no issues identified in older kids, or you're just not there yet?
Not there yet, but there's also a fixed amount. So,
Funding.
right.
Okay.
Lastly, we've added program coordinator at the preschool for special ed services to go through the testing and coordinating the IEPs. There's a lot of work there, and we had someone last year.
It's actually program leader, which is the same thing we have at the elementary schools. Actually, yeah, and also O'Malley, and something we had before at the preschool, which Andrew Prilla, director, took on in a large way until sort of probably last year. But the level of evaluation, the number of students who need evaluated, both in the school, but also who are aging, you know, becoming 3 years old and then need to be evaluated in the community, is at such a level that we need to reinstitute this position partially. What you're seeing is a teacher's salary there plus the program leader stipend.
Okay, I thought it was a stipend.
Yeah.
And we've hired that position?
Yes, because that's at the beginning of the year, because it's a teacher who was in the classroom, there really should be, was in the classroom, moved into the position, and then and then someone else replaced her. She's also doing teaching as well. Across the classes.
So that was her salary plus the stipend.
Yes.
And so that as you can see, that added up to 285,000, which is a little less than the budget, lower budget that we talked about just the slide before.
And that 285 includes benefit costs and things? Or no, that's just salary?
That's your salary.
Okay.
Any questions before we move on to, okay, the next area is.
I do have a question.
Sure.
As you're evaluating, Melissa asked related to the unemployment, will we bring anybody back? So I realized that the difference between the two numbers is, a little over 100,000, about what we believe we won't spend and what you've added. Are there any intervention services that people have identified that would be helpful to help our kids learn better for the second half of the year? That, in certain places, so you don't have to answer that right now. But I'm just wondering if there are opportunities to support kids so that improve learning. Some of those ways that we knew were hard to cut from the budget and that we did not.
We're aware of challenges folks are having on sort of tier 2 interventions and also on special education.
Yeah.
Every decision we are making right now, especially related to staff, is taking into account some of the things you'll see on the next couple of pages, but also the fact that our budgets year to year are linked. And so trying to be judicious in those responses. We have seen, I don't want to overstate this at all. We've seen a little better response in terms of applicants for open positions, paraprofessional, not for teachers. Again, that's very small, sample size. But that's, might be helpful, but we still are in a position where got to be really conscious of every decision.
And I'll just add, if I may, anything that we add now is going to affect the FY26 budget as well. And that's what we're working on right now, and it's very tight.
Yeah.
So we have to look at this multi-year.
Sure.
Moving on to the next category, out of district tuition and transportation. Just reviewing the budgets that we set at the beginning of the year, $7 million for out of district tuition. And then the next slide, we have out of district transportation, $2,340,000. So we're going to look at our expenses through the end of November and look at that in comparison to those budgets we just talked about. So the first one is tuition, and as you can see, there's columns for October estimates, November, December. And those you can see they're increasing. The tuition estimated each month we're going a little bit higher than the previous month. So now in December, we are estimating almost 6.4 million for the end of the year, and an approved budget of 6,050,000. So you can see that available budget we're over 320,000. But we did have some room budgeted for anticipated new growth and contingency. And after adding those two buckets together with the tuition estimated budget, we still have $400,000 Now, we're only in December, but January, February, March, April, you know, is that going to last through the end of the school year? So we don't know. We're watching this month by month. And we do know that there's 3 kids in the pipeline. And 2 of them have identified cost of about $225,000. So we still have 400,000 after subtracting that. So, but it's going to be close. Would you like to add anything, Mike?
So, I think that, so go back to like the gaps. And it's hard to, right, to build the airplane while you're flying, right? So, there are gaps here, and so we're gonna rely on some placements, before we can fill those gaps in programming. So just so you know that we're also looking at, some of our existing programming and the work that we're doing to shore that up. We do have some kids that might benefit or are already placed on a district that might benefit from returning to school with a short-term program. So we've got some work to do with that, and that's coming that could help with the, in the budget sense, potentially to offset some of this. That's work in progress and we'll always be working on this.
That's more going to next year, correct?
No, could actually be, there are some kids on the bubble coming back this year.
Okay, great.
Yeah, as soon as January, for one, and potentially, another one in January as well.
Do parents have to agree to come back,
Yeah,
or if we provide the services, they can come back? Or is
so
it
parents
still
always
need
have to agree, they have to
Yeah.
agree, there has to be, so there has to be an opportunity for a child, right? And it has to be meaningful, they have to be ready.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a degree of readiness that's required, and so there's an assessment we use. So Rachel Clemency and I work really close together, she's doing an excellent job handling a lot of the other districts. And so we have got our finger on the pulse of that for each child, and we make the decisions or presentations for parents as the options come.
So I can just say, I mean, I've sat in this chair for 18 years and I've never heard a conversation of students coming back.
Oh.
This is the first I've heard. I don't know if we've ever discussed that at this level.
We've talked about it.
We have?
Yeah,
I
I mean, not, you know, a long, you know, presentation, yeah, but no, because it happens every year to some degree.
Okay.
And it happened last year, the year before. as well.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I don't remember that, probably because we didn't have the director at the table to discuss it, maybe.
Well, no, I mean,
You knew it.
yeah, I mean,
You were
last year she didn't give a presentation, but the prior year she did, and so, and I may be getting mixed up with my coverage that are, you know,
That's okay.
outside from, but it happens, you know, often, I mean, typically it's happening, I don't know about these 2 examples, at the high school level.
Okay.
You know, kids are growing up,
Right.
they're, you know, they're learning about their disabilities, they're getting really good education and teaching, you know, outside the district. And that's, you know, as those skills become generalizable, they can then, you know, have the skills to be, you know, closer to home. So, again, that's a generalized statement, but that's often where you see it happen.
Okay.
But it's also a tight look at, on a clinical level, where kids are at in readiness. And matching that up against the programs that we have, so we're shoring up programs to meet those needs, like on the fly right now, as we're in the school year. But as we move forward, we have more planning partners. So that's that soft audit, the data, looking at the students' profiles, how do we shift our programs to meet those needs? And that's our work for next year. So the work we're doing now, opportunities for kids now, but there's also gonna be an anticipated, I don't know how many, I can't give you that number right now, but we'll be getting that work.
Just, I mentioned it briefly at last meeting, but we'll say it again, I keep saying it, is that Mike's gonna present February 12th at school committee. It's about, you know, where he's seen from work across different, a lot of people, where things stand and where we're ahead.
I'll get more detail on this.
Yeah.
I'll know more by then too.
Just so you know, that's, you know, scheduled. A lot of work to do now and then to
Yes.
keep learning, first of all, but
Right.
also keep working with folks and also understand where our approach to be.
Okay, any more questions for the next category is transportation, out of district transportation. And we have, this is more anticipated to be, as you can see, our expenses for December are not that much greater than what they were for October. So there's less of a increase for out of district transportation. And so after all the budget categories we have, the out of district transportation, the homeless foster, and awaiting placement, additional placements needing transportation, we have 914,000. So this is in better shape than the tuition budget, but you know, we'll need these funds when we build next year's budget. So this is not, you know, it's not a lot. It's something that we need and count on for next year's budget. Any questions on that? And this, just to let you know, Mike has set up meetings each month with the transportation coordinator to really, you know, make sure that we have the right transportation for the right student. He's doing a great job on that.
These are eligible kids.
Yeah.
Or ineligible.
Interesting.
We're a little more liberal on transportation. Perhaps we should have been in the past, you know. In terms of, especially students, if they're being transported to the district program, that's outside of their school, they have, rights to transportation. But if they're, but in terms of, if I, you're wrong here, Mike. I don't know the speaks, but for example, preschool, they get transportation if their disability requires it. I suppose they should just get it. So that's one area we've looked at, maybe other areas too. I'm not aware of.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of nuances here with transportation as far as whether it's a neighborhood school, whether it's out of district or so 50-50 cost shares with parents who are divorced in two different communities. So that all has to be untangled. I'm not sure that. So that's the work we're doing right now. So it's that eligibility, cost sharing, making sure that it's accurate. Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about, we had an audit on our circuit breaker mid-November. And so Mike and I were at the audit, listened to their findings. DESE conducted the audit mid-November on circuit breaker claim and extraordinary relief claim. And that, as you know, we received almost 400,000 from the extraordinary relief. So a team of auditors, 4 of them came from DESE. The result was $100,000. They're taken away from the claim, and this also was attributable to the FY24 claim and some of it to the extraordinary claim. What we did learn from this process, we need to track services to invoices to the claim. So we need to tick the invoices to the claim and make sure those two are equal. And then obviously look at the contracts, make sure the invoices match the contract. And we need to do this year round. Also, we're gonna need greater involvement from the special ed director to oversee the process. And Mike is doing that, started that process. Additional one-to-one services we learned and approved private programs requires a individual price authorization from the OSD department, which is the operational services department from the state. we need that authorization before we can claim reimbursement for a one-to-one aid. Separate placements, we need to keep those separate from summer and school year. Need to keep those separate. And any children that we identify that are from transitional assistance or DCF and have no parents or no guardians, those are reimbursed at a higher rate, 100%, as opposed to 75%. So if you don't claim the 100%, you're not gonna get it. So we learned a lot through this process, and we're already making changes. Any questions before I move on?
Because we got a little bit dinged there, not dinged, but they found a couple things. Desi, does that set us up for another audit?
Yes.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so it's imperative that we put these ideas and what we learned into immediate action. And so that we'll be prepared for the next time they come, and they should come back within 2 years.
So
Yeah,
so the hard part for me was, so this is all, so I start in July.
Yeah.
And this is due in July. So I'm coming in cold to a hot situation, right? And so, so 12 years that I did this, I know all these rules, but I don't know all the students. And so it's really hard for me to be involved in a meaningful way with circuit breaker. So what we did, I took my format that I did for 12 years and I placed it here before I got this. So that's a spreadsheet, invoices, all connected, so it's all predictable, it's all tallied, so the work you do it year round. You don't just do it in June. So you make it a part of your function to keep the special education office going. So I don't foresee this having these kinds of issues moving forward.
and it's due July 15th, so
Right, it's just.
you only have 15 days after the end of the year to submit the claim. So to Mike's point, yes, you need to do that each month throughout the school year.
How do we track foster children when they enroll in school? Like, is that something they designate when they register the child?
So for students receiving special ed services, DCF workers would be part of it.
Okay,
And so we would know that we have that
right.
feedback from them.
Yeah.
They should be marked.
Okay.
Well, it's like systems. right?
Yeah,
So-
no,
so-
I'm
So it's building that, so
thinking
it's,
like that.
I can't do that in July, right?
Right.
It's already done. Not only that, I don't know the kids, so now is the work doing it now so that our program leaders know who to expect, know who to identify, who's gonna be appropriate for circuit breaker. How to make sure they fit the right categories.
I'm just thinking of how foster children through care and protections can move into the community at any time. Try to stay with their home town school. That's the.
Well, there'd be a
Homeless
bit,
Act.
there'd be
Yeah.
a best interest determination.
Yeah.
So they could make the determination of best interest to leave the district or home district. So there's variability.
And that's something we're aware of when they register the child, right? So, okay. I didn't know if there was any kind of privacy with that. Categorization.
The other thing that we learned was before we were blacking out the student's name. We need to have the student's name clearly on the invoice or document to support the claim. So we have changed now to not blacking out the student name. So we have that evidence that child is that we're paying for the services and that it's on the claim. And that's what they need to see.
Yeah, in an audit, that's what they're gonna be able to match up the value to the student. Exactly right.
And how does that, it was explained to me, the warrants. I think it was explained to me that these invoices do not get sent down to City Hall for privacy reasons, but they have, you have some mechanism where they can validate the invoices without having student information.
Well, we've been sending the invoice to the treasurer's office.
And they just
Yeah,
keep it confidential.
right. We have it, you have to have a password to get into Munis,
Yeah.
be able to see the invoice.
I don't know.
Yeah. Some do. Is there a way to stamp confidential information? I work with a lot of confidential information through the court, and every time we do, we like either do a stamp or something so that that invoice is identified as having confidential information. Is there a way to do a process like
Digital
that?
invoice, is that a paper invoice? You say stamp, I'm thinking.
The paper, well, when I go to sign the warrants, I see paper
Right.
invoices, right?
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
a paper at some point and then it
Yeah.
gets scanned.
Right,
But is there a way to make that document indicate that there's confidential information on it before it gets sent to City Hall?
that's something we can look into. Yeah.
I mean, even
stamp-
with social security numbers, right? Also, security numbers are supposed to be confidential.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if those are listed on any documents with services,
Yeah,
but it's not supposed to be distributed, so I'm just wondering if your office has thought about a process like that. You don't have to answer me, I would just highly recommend it,
okay,
because there's a big push to keep
yeah,
more information confidential.
Yeah, just check on the process on the city
Yeah.
side to make
Yeah.
sure you are
Who's
comfortable,
seeing
you are comfortable that
Yeah.
student information is.
so before it was blacking out. And now
Right, now
they
it's
told
not.
us you can't black out the names.
So then there needs to be confidentiality processes in place.
Yeah.
Right, because you're now distributing confidential information.
Right,
And it shouldn't be too hard because the special education warrant is one on its own. And it's not lumped in with the
Right.
bigger ones. So
yeah, we keep that separate.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn to the next page. And this is our last slide. The circuit breaker balance right now, after subtracting the 100,000, is $466,000. And then we talked about the tuition, the available budget of 400,000. And we talked about the transportation out of district of 914,000. So this is a snapshot in time. This will change month by month. But I wanted to give you the snapshot and tell you this is what we, if this was June 30th, this is what we would carry over to next year's budget. And this helps us build the tuition budget and the out-of-district transportation budget for next year. Now, at this time, we typically anticipate about $1 million in our circuit breaker balance. So you can see that we're less than the $1 million. So we still have some work to do. And we're keeping close tabs on that. And that at the end of this fiscal year, we'll be using that to build our budget for FY '26. So there's a lot of connectivity between fiscal years.
This is why, although there's some good news earlier, that it's tempered by this news.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is what I was sort of moving to.
Yeah.
Not sort of, I was moving to. Also, as you know, a couple of placements, those can also increase too, number of placements. Maybe bring some kids back, there's always good news and there's some savings there. But as you folks know, it's we're only in December, that's going to change and we still will pursue and need to pursue and make sure the city and school gets in place the major fund for special education. Because that's our needs aren't going down, our student needs. And I think we're starting to get a better handle on what it's gonna take to support kids really well. And that's not gonna, it's gonna cost some money.
And that fund is available, we haven't tapped that fund,
So,
so.
because, not yet, no, we haven't, it hasn't been created yet because the free cash has
Free
not
cash
been
hasn't been
certified.
certified.
Yeah, so, but we will.
And that's in
We're not-
January?
Typically, yeah, we won't forget that.
Yeah, it's usually January, February is the free cash. So this is our BNF agenda and
You have transfers, you have two transfers.
oh, transfers.
Yep.
One last thing, thank you. We have two transfers. One was from October, and in October, we we would have presented in November, but because we didn't meet, we're doing it today. The transfer was from general ed supplies to curriculum, or just the opposite, curriculum ed supplies to general ed supplies at Beaman. And they met all their needs for curriculum supplies. And so now the balance is they're going to use it for general ed supplies. So it's just moving it from one of her accounts to another. And that's 13,866.49. So we have one more transfer. And this is a transfer of $75,000. We're moving this from the school committee contingency to the professional services in the school committee umbrella. And that is $75,000. We need to do that to pay one invoice that was generated recently.
Those are strike related costs.
I was gonna say, what,
Yeah, the strike related,
okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
So without further ado, those are the two budget transfers, and if there could be a motion to approve those, that'd be great.
I move that we approve the transfers as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, the motion's to recommend to the school committee. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. That both passes.
Thank you, and that's
Get that?
yeah, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much. Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all very much. Very nice having you down here.